Hello and welcome to the Conscious Diva podcast. I'm Tatiana. In this episode, sound healer and former corporate scientist Ruslana Remenekova joins me to discuss her incredible new book, Activating Our 12-Stranded DNA. This is a lengthy episode loaded with info about our 12-stranded DNA, the concept that suggests humans possess a potential for a much more complex DNA structure with 12 strands. I'm excited to delve into this truly fascinating topic. Some of the concepts include how to transform our DNA from the standard double helix into its 12-stranded dodecahedral form, and how this form encompasses sound frequency, water consciousness, generational trauma, and the transformative ability to unlock profound spiritual potential, heightened consciousness, and psychic abilities. An absolutely incredible episode. Listen or watch now wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like this episode, please write a review and follow me on Instagram and YouTube at The Conscious Diva. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's really exciting. I'm just going to hold it up. Activating our 12-stranded DNA, secrets of dodecahedral DNA for completing our human evolution. Like,
Isn't that a beautiful cover created by Inner Traditions?
it is. It's awesome. And so this is not a light read. This is not a, you can't just sit back and read it when you're half asleep, maybe like gonna go to bed and kind of think you can read a chapter or so. There's no way. You need to be wide awake. So actually, I'm gonna just begin with explain what is this 12-stranded DNA? We're mostly familiar with the double helix, right? That's the most common theory.
Thank you for asking. And thanks for the opportunity to share about it. So you're right. We are so conditioned to remember to kind of understand what the double helix is for almost, it's been 72 years that this has been introduced to us. Yet we live in such an exciting time where organically people are starting to talk about a more complex DNA molecule. And it's funny, when I wrote this book, I completely surrendered to this idea of what does 12 strands of DNA even mean? So I kind of threw myself out there without any resources of, without researching what is 12-stranded DNA online, but I wanted to kind of investigate the tapestry of all of the information that we have already available at our hands, but look at DNA, the DNA molecule that is so much more elegant and sophisticated. I came in with an intuition that the DNA molecule that makes us, that's the hallmark of life. What could it be like beyond a double helix? That was the first question that I personally embodied in this process of writing this book. And I have a scientific background. I graduated from Virginia Commonwealth University, which is in Richmond, Virginia, with two bachelors, one in biology and one in chemistry. I was 3 credits away from triple majoring in forensic science. And then I landed a job at pharmaceutical product development where I worked as a bench analyst in the immunochemistry department. And then I was very curious. I've always wanted to branch out, learn from different departments. So I worked in vaccine sciences, and then I also worked in cell-based assays as well. Cumulatively, I worked for this company, which is now Thermo Fisher Scientific, for nearly a decade. And I had the opportunity to work in a vaccine lab at the time. So, with the background in microbiology and with also genetic substances, I felt that I could do so much more with my curiosity and intuition. I had more drive to not only just research with the client's requests and kind of what I was asked to do in a corporate setting. I wanted to go further. And to be quite frank, I would not want to be my own boss because I know how I just generally like to push beyond the status quo of what we already know. So when I was, and it came twice, actually, it came twice where I felt so suffocated by the system because I wanted to continue looking more at the spiritual and physical and energetic vortex of what DNA is. And I couldn't do that in a pharmaceutical lab. So I made the leap. I made the leap to write this book because through the writing, through the researching, this seed that activated within me about how complex our DNA is and how we are so much more, we've got so much more potential than a double strand. It came to me in my writing. It was just so phenomenal, the process of writing and understanding and seeing, yes, the affirmation and the confirmation of what I was originally being guided to, which is the 12-stranded DA, but also beyond that. It's sort of the visionary blueprint of the future. And as I was segueing into this originally, it's really exciting to see how, there's a collective sort of inherent understanding that our DNA is so much more than what was presented to us in textbooks decades ago. And a lot of people now are coming together and saying, how can we activate our 12-stranded DNA? And that's exciting. All of that's exciting. It also sort of speaks to the time that we're in and the fact that as a collective, we are hungry, we are seeking, we're thirsty, we're seeking for more depth and understanding of how we can unlock our potential.
There's so much in your book that I was like, oh my gosh, I've really got to like narrow it down to focus on very specific aspects. Let's stick to the DNA first, because that's obviously the title of your book, Activating It. Why would somebody want to activate their DNA? What is the benefit in this?
So, from a more high level overview of humanity, we are sort of in this birthing era.
Mhm.
We are contracting, something is aspiring, something is wanting to emerge. And we see it through different aspects of technology. We see it in kind of self-identity theologies. We see it through how we are sort of shifting in our perspective about Earth overall and the way that we constellate with life in general. And so I believe that we are in this divine timeline where the frequency of the planet is rising. There's a lot of effort into self-development in the last 30 to 40 years. There's a lot of effort into more intentional practices of sustainability with how we're being good stewards of the planet. We are in this timeline where we are starting to realize that there is actually more to being human. We are constantly sort of chasing after this rabbit of what is the next way of being human? What's the next level of being human? And so I believe simply, it's sort of just a simple answer that everything is happening by divine timing. We are all rebirthing, redefining what life is. And so the hallmark of life here on this planet is within us, with in how we feel creation and how we sort of interface with it. It's all in our what we call DNA.
Mhm. So then just explain the difference then with, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with what the double helix image of DNA, the strands of DNA looks like. So what then, and if they're not, if you wouldn't mind just please explaining that, and then compare it to the 12 strands.
Yeah. So with the double helix, the typical archetype is there is two twin helices that are spiraling around each other. One's a 5' and one's a 3', and they go into anti-parallel directions. DNA is also capable of having a palindromic resonance, meaning that it's capable of sort of having capabilities of being read forwards and backwards. There's actually a really significant opportunity in how we can sort of extrapolate patterns in DNA as we extrapolate patterns in our life as well. That's what I mean by more of a palindromic resonance structure. I'm not saying DNA is palindromic. I believe that it's more of a structure. I just wanted to clarify that. So that's sort of the overall kind of scope of the twin helices. DNA, the DNA molecule is also shelled by water as well. That's significant in how the DNA double helix was discovered. In the 50s, Rosalind Franklin was studying in King's College with Maurice Wilkins. When she came into the lab, he was already sort of creating this pioneering work with the DNA molecule. She was very bright, very sharp. One of her strengths was her ability to capture the best crystallography diffraction photos in the world. Photograph 51 is what made her, the queen, the diva in her ability and how she was able to show the structure of DNA from an aerial cross-section point of view. Rosalind Franklin actually in her crystallographic calculations was able to show that water surrounds DNA because it is able to be titrated. Titration is a chemistry term, which means that the ability of determining a concentration and also how that concentration of a known analyte or substance, whatever you want to call it, it can be dye, it can be oil, it can be anything. How that concentration of that substance changes as you reduce the solvent's concentration around it. So that's what titration means.
Thank you.
Of course. And so so in order to understand that the water molecule is what surrounds the DNA molecule, the water surrounds the DNA molecule, water has to be the element that's being titrated. So that's how she was able to give that legacy to the world. And, there's more to the story. James Watson, Francis Crick.
And you share that in your book. You do explain, but you don't go into the water aspect, but you share that there's other people that were involved in the discovery of DNA.
Absolutely. So segueing into the dodecahedral model, which is the 12-stranded concept, is I knew that the DNA molecule isn't static. It isn't a fixed molecule, as the double helix kind of inherently presents itself. And more studies recently have been showing this, that the DNA molecule is actually malleable. It's flexible. It's able to change shapes. It's a shapeshifter, one-on-one with water, right? Because it's a one-on-one, one-to-one relationship. So as I'm researching, I'm getting more and more excited about learning how the DNA molecule, there's been a number of studies that have showed that the DNA molecule actually exists in more strands. It's been found to have 3 and 4 strands in a healthy, normal human cell.
What are the findings around that? Like, are these scientists who are discovering there's 4 strands, are they saying, wow, this individual has these different capabilities or abilities, or are they just keeping it to themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as the functionality behind the phenotype of the genotype, that hasn't been fully elaborated on. But what scientists are really thriving from is the fact that they are learning that DNA exists as a multi-stranded molecule, and they are ready to further investigate beyond that. So, with the dodecahedral model, it has pentagons, it's a pentagonal shape.
I actually have my box of shapes of platonic solids.
Yes. Oh, you're an angel. Literally. I don't even have those. Thank you.
I can hold them up and we can have a look. And then I'll take it out. I'll take it out of the box so we can hold it up and you can talk about it.
Let's
Okay, so
talk
here
about it.
in this set, they relate to the five elements.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
I that's what I wanted to go over together.
Here it is.
Yes, that's there it is, the dodecahedron. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
this dodecahedron, like why is it such a powerful shape? And how then do we get 12 strands of DNA from this
Yeah.
multifaceted shape?
Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about segueing from the double helix, which is a very significant beginning of what we understand as DNA molecule. And it still is, but let's kind of expand our horizons. Let's sort of imagine the DNA molecule as something that's much more elaborate, okay? So thousands of years ago, a young man named Plato gave us so many legacies, but one that is really significant for me in this book are the five Platonic solids. Okay. So he gave the tetrahedron, the cube,
Mhm.
the octahedron, the dodecahedron, and the icosahedron. Those are the five, so that's the tetrahedron.
Okay, I'm gonna hold them up. So here we go. There
Six edges, four faces, and four vertices.
looks like a pyramid.
Looks like a pyramid. And it's supposed to symbolize fire.
Yes,
Okay.
the element
Now,
of
one thing I want to say is that modern science now is acknowledging that the structure of blood, plasma, has a tetrahedral geometry.
wow.
Yes, it's so exciting.
Wow. That's so interesting, isn't it? Huh. So I guess you know this the phrase "my blood is boiling." You can feel the heat in your blood. There's truth to that.
Yes.
They're literally feeling that, that fire in their body.
It's happening. We're starting to align with the language that is somewhat comical, but actually quite wise to the
Mm.
inherent wisdom that already comes with us. Okay, so the next one is the cube, which has what symbolizes Earth, 12 edges, six faces, and eight vertices. The
Lovely.
cube. And there is a golden ratio, which I discuss further in my book that I don't want to deviate from, that also exists in a cube. I know that some mathematicians might have some controversy with this, but I explain exactly what I mean in the book. I want to mention something really exciting about the octahedron, which is the element of air, 12 edges, eight faces, six vertices. Okay.
It's a difficult shape to describe. It's almost like two pyramids touching each other.
Yes. Okay. For all of you listeners, I'm going to throw a golden nugget. Okay. Each platonic solid and in general, the geometric patterns or solids that we are aware of, okay, they each have a symmetry group. Coincidentally, the number for the octahedron symmetry group is, which symbolizes air on this planet, is 432.
Mm.
432 is a harmonious frequency that we as humans associate to. I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about that later if you happen to talk about
Yeah,
want to.
let's come back to that because obviously frequency and sound is a critical aspect of your book. So, and that frequency that hurts when it's listened to is has amazing effects on the human body.
Yes. So again, this is wisdom that Plato was inspired by 2,000 years ago. Okay? Let's just remember that there is wisdom in each of these solids that give a story of creation, because that's what geometry is. It helps us understand divine creation. Then there's the dodecahedron. Okay.
I'll hold up
Yes.
again. There we go.
The
Okay.
dodecahedron symbolizes ether.
Mhm.
Plato said that it symbolized the universe. The universe.
Mhm.
Can we just take a second here? Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. So 30 edges,
Mhm.
12 faces, 20 vertices. I'm sharing these numbers because it will make sense when we talk about the icosahedron. Tatiana is holding the icosahedron on the left side. The icosahedron symbolizes water.
Mhm.
Now, remember, okay, I'm going to hold them up while you're holding them. I'm going to repeat this again.
Okay.
The dodecahedron contains 30 edges. The icosahedron contains 30 edges. The dodecahedron contains 12 faces. The icosahedron contains 20 faces, right? For the vertices, you flip them. So the dodecahedron contains 20 vertices. The icosahedron contains 12. Okay? There's a lot of symmetry in these two shapes. We also know, thanks to more emerging research, that the dodecahedron and the icosahedron are actually what is called a dual coupling.
Mhm.
And what that means is that they can interchangeably shift within one another. They can become one and separate of the other
Uh-huh.
instantaneously. So let's remember the relationship now between DNA, the DNA molecule, and the water molecule. They are one to one. The water molecule shells the DNA molecule. There's so much science there that we're still unaware of, and how the properties of water are enriching DNA and vice versa.
Yeah.
But there is such a synchronous alignment there between what Plato has showed us and the reality of how the DNA molecule and the water molecule dance with each other. So I just thank you for showing those models, because I think it really helps people see how they can mirror each other and how they support each other as well.
I think it's really fascinating because sacred geometry is the basis of all life. You know, we have the flower of life, and as you do demonstrate in your book. And so let's just talk about water then, because I'm not the expert here. Share with your findings with sound when you played the harp, and the photography. And there's already been a lot of studies on water and how beautiful the shifts and positive and negative effects on water.
There was a moment in my life when I was writing this book when I realized that I have to deconstruct everything that I understand about water. I have to remove any stories that tell me what water is from my academic side, and I wanted to spiritually open up to water. And the person that inspired me, the first person that inspired me was Veda Austin. Veda Austin is now, an emerging water scientist. She's been in this field for, I think, 8, 9 years now, from New Zealand, Australia. And I heard her on a podcast. And at the time, I didn't realize how my path would start aligning with water research and my interactions with water using sound. But when I started writing this book, I realized that it's happening now, that my relationship with water is actually changing because I'm changing, and every person who experiences any kind of change in perspective or, some kind of advancement, actually, water has a lot to do with it. Water is that mysterious life force that lives in every single one of us. And we're starting to understand more about what that mystery is, but there's still a lot of life in mystery. So, listening to Veda Austin, I started to also become very interested in Dr. Masaru, the Japanese water scientist, with his studies showing how sound can influence the shapes of water. Of course, he had a microscope, and I have an iPhone. So, uh, with water, you can use either.
Quickly just talk about the example you use in your book because that was really awesome. It's like anyone can do it. Anybody with a digital phone can just do that at home, just to prove to themselves or to do the experiment, like you said, you don't need a microscope.
What opened my eyes to this is I did a one-on-one with Veda Austin when I started my journey. I wanted to see, how does this work? And so I'm referencing her because she's the one that introduced me to this. And as soon as we started our session together, she said, "Let me do a reading. What does water want to say? Not about you. What does water want to say?"
Mm.
So then off the bat, she's acknowledging water as its own being, as its own intelligence. So I thought, okay, what a way to start a workshop together. So she puts water into a little petri glass petri dish. You can get it off Amazon, $10, $12, whatever. And she freezes it. She says, "My time is 5:55 or about that time." Meaning that she puts it in her freezer and then she takes it out at that time. And then when she did, she says, "You always take a towel for the condensation." And then she shows it to us. And it's this very coherent image of a flower. It was a lotus flower opening up.
And that photo's in your book, and you totally can tell that it's a lotus flower.
Right, right. So water, she just did a reading. She didn't ask water anything. She said, "Just show us what you want." So right off the bat, I thought, okay, she had me, right? She still does. And after one session, I thought, okay, now it's my time. I want to change my conscious relationship with water. I want to acknowledge that water is its own being. And so that's what I did. In my own space. I felt so silly, but I didn't care anymore. I had a little petri dish of water. I started a conversation with it and I introduced myself to it. "My name is Ruslana. I've got my cat back here. Her name's Bijou. She's white, she's poofy, she's really sweet. This is what I did today. I would love if we can become friends." I just really pushed those boundaries of my own discomfort, of my own skepticism, because I come again from a scientific background, and here I am, a woman talking to water. Um,
Yeah, I love it.
yeah, so I realized in that session with water that I'm not, my times will be different from betas or anyone else, and I encourage everyone in the audience to recognize that too. And I just found that perfect medium. I think it was like close to 6 minutes for me. And in the very beginning, it's, you warm up to a person, you warm up to something, you start to learn its patterns, its shapes. There has to be a recognition medium between two people where you start to feel the field, right? So in that first session, I thought, okay, I was so confident. Yes, this is it. I believe that we have something, and we did, even though it wasn't understandable to me at that time. I still felt that water is opening up to me because I've opened up to it. So moving forward, I started to every day talk with water. I started to experiment using different techniques. For instance, I would put water on top of an image and see how it would memorize the structure of that image, because water has shown memory in experiments. The perfect example is Jean Bonaviste, who is one of the founders of homeopathy, where he studied how when you add a any sort of biological substance and you titrate it, right? You reduce that concentration all the way down to the last spinning molecule, right? Water remembers how that movement is in the water. It will still operate in the way that it remembers and recognizes that molecule to the last molecule. So I would just do intelligence questions where there was no visual prop to test its memory. I would just simply ask it questions. I would ask what lives underwater. And at the time, I had a mermaid pendant necklace. And in the book, I have an image of what seems to be an image of a person that looks like a mermaid. It has a fin attached to it. And that was one way I talked with water. Another way is I would sleep with water. So when I used to I would have a nightmare. I would see if water would detect it and how it would show that. So what I realized in my interfacing with it is that water appeared very stressed. It had a lot of jagged lines versus having more like star shapes or geometric patterns that look like the platonic solids, interestingly. So there was just a different range of different approaches I would take to start facilitating an open relationship with water. The more open that I became with water, the more clear the patterns are. There's no background noise. There's no kind of random shapes anymore. It just becomes a clear image.
It almost becomes a form of divination in a sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I decided, okay, I wanted to somehow apply my idea about the dodecahedron just universally connected to the DNA concept, right? So I thought, why don't I sonify the dodecahedron on a 36 string harp? And it was sonified using 7 frequencies of the dodecahedron. What I mean by that is in the book, I elaborate on the specific structure of the dodecahedron, and I deconstructed what those angles are and converted them into frequency. So I used 7 of those angles, right? The geometric angles, and just plotted them on the harp.
And that's the section where I was like, I can't be reading this in bed. I need a fresh brain to track what she's talking about here.
Yeah, it was so mind-blowing because when I started to play, I was so excited. I felt that water would possibly I felt that water would present what is water's interpretation of the sound. I'm more interested in that. I'm more interested of what the wisdom that water wants to present.
Water is so deeply healing. Like I actually have a copper bathtub. And copper, as you know, is supremely conductive, right?
Yeah.
And so you can imagine when it's filled with water and you set an intention before like getting in. Like often I'll run a little bit and I'll stand in it and I will literally set an intention and thank the water, thank it for the healing properties and literally look at it coming out of the tap, but also look at the bottom of the tub as it's filling up with water. And then I'm laying in the bath. It's like this supremely healing experience. I've always loved bathing anyway, taking a bath, but in a copper bathtub, it's like amplified to like another level.
There was a fascinating study done in, I think, India, where water was infused by mantra
Mm.
for a certain period of time. And they wanted to see how this infused water with intention would respond in treating the waters, the underground water that had contamination. We hope that this kind of water actually helps, decontaminate. But actually, it has so much energy and life that it actually enlivens the bacteria. It's so they saw an increase in the concentration of the bacteria in the waters using the mantra infused water.
For me, makes total sense because
Mhm.
when I'm in the bath and I'm using chanting mantra, I'm really being very intentional with the kind of mantra that I'm using. I'm making sure it's not to a deity that might be more active, because that's not the moment that I want. I want to be in an environment that's more soothing. And so I do also know the mantra for water. And so I'll chant for the Devi of water, Jala Devi. And so it's actually quite a soothing, beautiful, up-leveling experience of gratitude because it's like I'm acknowledging the presence of the deity within the water.
There's so much excitement, I think, where scientists are finally wanting to go into the rogue areas of understanding what life is about. And water is one of those fields. I mean, we know, thanks to Dr. Gerald Pollack, and other supporting scientists and contributors, that water exists beyond three phases. Water actually has four phases. So it's now accepted that water has four phases. We're slowly building our momentum into deliberately living a more expansive light. It's part of the birthing cycle that we're in. It's truly exciting. What a time to live.
I think so. It is. It is amazing, and that things are being acknowledged in a way that they're being normalized. We can have these conversations, and we're not thought of as crazy people.
Yes.
We're like, I thank
Yes.
you for water. I actually bless my water every morning, and with my hands over my glass, and before I consume it. And for the last 20 years, I actually stopped having water that was cold with ice in it, understanding that it alters the form and it's not good internally for my body. And this is such a myth in the West, particularly in the United States, where everybody, especially in the summertime, really needs to have water with ice in it. And I'm iced everything, iced coffee, iced teas, like all these ice beverages. And it's like, oh my gosh, like
Yes. Yes.
it's not actually good in that form for the internal organs. But when I read that section in your book where you were talking to the water and I messaged you this and told you, I said, hi, good morning. I introduced myself. I'm like, my name is Tatiana. Thank you so much for like holding my body and expanding my DNA and really up-leveling every organ, every cell, all the arteries, my blood, everything in my body. And then I said, I'm so grateful. And then I always, as a part of my blessing, my water, thank in the tradition that I practice in the Nagas, who are the wisdom keepers of the waterways. So I said that aloud. I did feel really silly too, but then I was like, do you know what? It's amazing. There's just all these wonderful benefits, and like, why not say thanks? Why not acknowledge what it does for us?
There are some really fascinating and intricate images of water. I think it's probably close to like on the other side of the world. I forgot which continent or body of water exactly, but easily searchable online. The bodies of water that have snow around, they are creating patterns, frozen patterns in the water, that it's not a blank sheet of ice. It's actually very beautiful flower of life looking patterns. There's no way that a human being went out there and carved this into the water. No, it's actually communication of the water. It's life that's budding from the water. And it's exciting that humans are starting to capture those moments,
Yeah.
where they become evidence now.
And you can even buy, glass water bottles with the flower of life image on it, and it amplifies and changes the structure of the water, so that it's cleaner and more whole for the drinker of the water. And thank you you mention your book, Dr. Emoto, who really was a pioneer in the studies of water with the photography of how when putting positive energy into the water, speaking just kind words, and then photographing it, how that shifted and did create this flower of life like pattern.
Yeah, Dr. Emoto, I think that he's one of the scientists that thankfully showed us this hidden quality about water. I mean, when you look at his images, there's so many stories that you can tell.
Mhm.
No one needs to even narrate it. The water is narrating it for you in response to the vibration that it's receiving. And it's not just sound. I believe it's also intention. When the water was stimulated by Mozart, it was creating these beautiful snowflake imagery with, hard metal, rock and roll, disorganization,
Mhm.
chaos, right?
Yeah.
He had hundreds of these visuals. There's so much there. Water is becoming the emphasis. And just the other day, I realized that thanks to water, there's more emphasis on form and DNA because of water. Water is the shapeshifter. Water is the diva. I think that in the future, as science progresses, we are going to become more interested not only in the shape of DNA, but actually the emphasis will be more on water. That's more forward thinking.
How then can you relate that again to the 12-stranded DNA that resides within us? If we're consuming water and blessing it and setting an intention, what then is that doing for our DNA? Or this is that a method that we can apply to awaken the 12-stranded DNA within us?
So everything that we have within us, it's there. It's we are born in this divine capability, right? I also think that we are just not in a technology age where we're able to fully understand and unravel 12 strands of DNA just yet. But again, everything begins on a spiritual level. Spirituality concretizes into the 3D world. So it's really important that if we do decide we want to activate our 12-stranded DNA, right? It's first of all, it's a matter of choice and free will. Second of all, is we are so much more vast and talented, and there are so many levels of being human that we are unraveling about ourselves, whether that means communicating with angels or frequency beyond our scientific understanding, right? More sort of parapsychology, anomalous experiences. That's still beyond us, but what's more important is how we are feeling about ourselves, the love that we are advancing on. How can we expand our understanding about human love?
Mhm.
That to me, if I die tomorrow, right? That is my overall overarching goal, is to further my own understanding of what love is, because love is the consciousness
Mhm.
that is bridging everything that we are capable of experiencing in this life. And
Mhm.
love is the least technical term on this planet, but it is the gateway into evolution, and one that is becoming a scary, forgotten memory, which is why I'm urgently and also with so much care sharing that love really is the answer here. We can do all of these practices, which are great ways to attune the body, right? To kind of create a physiological shift, because a lot of the times, I mean, every day we have blockages. We have to overcome something, right? And we have a lot of ways in doing that. At the end of the day, I want to share one last thing with you, because So excited about this.
Yeah.
In my book, you probably have noticed that I go into gematria a lot.
Yes. Well, I did want to ask you about gematria. So, yeah, if you could definitely explain, firstly, what is gematria? What is this practice, and how is it related to numbers?
Yes. Okay. So gematria is the ancient study of the alphanumeric system behind a letter, which creates a word, which creates ideas, right? And part of the scientist, the spiritual scientist in me, is when you start to see the patterns that, or the shared values, numbers that words have. So this was something that was given to us. Again, it goes back to Pythagorean days. I studied Pythagorean gematria with a very capable mentor, Pythagorean mentor, who has proven Pythagorean theorem in 520 ways. He's now the current world Guinness record holder. And his name is Eleftherios Argopoulos. And he is in Greece. He lives in Greece, and he is a diamond, sort of a hidden diamond. And he has really opened my eyes to how we can start sort of bringing in concepts together mathematically just by decoding these constructions of language, because language is a vibration. Words are vibration. Words are numbers. This
Mhm.
is different from numerology.
Just
Yeah.
quickly explain how it's different to numerology.
So I'm going to stick specifically with the fact that it's a more of a Pythagorean approach to studying numbers, right? So we take the symmetry behind, we actually take data, for example, your name, Tatiana Wright, and we convert it. I use the Greek language because that's what I learned, and I extrapolate a number from it. You have your own number. You also have your own number when you're activated. You have your own number when you are aligned with living your mission. So it's the Pythagorean approach. It's wisdom that was passed down, but very carefully. And a lot of people, I think one day we'll learn more about it, but a lot of people, it's unknown. It's like a diamond in the rough, you know?
And it's different to numerology how? Because that also a name can be a breakdown to a number.
I've kind of just personally not really associated or resonated with it because there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of kind of subjective experiences with a person's own relationship with numerology. And I think that's also part of the sacred part of living with numbers is a number that associates with you is affirming when you see it. And it can also transmit differently in the energetic configuration that it's in the moment, because moment and time exist, but they also don't. So with numerology, I just haven't really spent a lot of time in understanding what numerology is because I've been more magnetized towards the Pythagorean approach because there's sort of a congruency with how I'm interfacing with the solids as well, the geometric solids. So it all kind of funneled and streamlined with the dodecahedron approach as well. But I'm not against numerology. I just simply don't have much experience in this kind of multifaceted tradition. I've sort of kept under the umbrella of something that's a lot more mathematically proven and verified.
There's definitely a frequency and a vibration that is emitted from they're like codes in a sense,
Yeah.
right? They're like mathematical codes and different to like light codes, but there's some kind of a transmission that takes place when you're breaking down these various words and then and then revealing the number, right, within that, because that feels, as you said, it feels very sacred. And so when you started working with, did you start to see more angel numbers as a result? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I I'm so excited about this because when I started to work with Eleftherios, there was sort of a kind of a natural unlocking that happened with me where it's the same thing with water. When you become more open to its life, to what it wants to reveal to you, it happens. It can happen.
Mm.
So when I started working with Eleftherios, I started seeing more relevance in information that was being transmitted through numbers. Like, for example, I really wanted to share with you when you take the word consciousness, syndisi in Greek, it's 885, 885. Well, coincidentally, a meaningful coincidence, when you take the word love, agape, right? It's also the number 885. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. That's actually really amazing because, like, so when I work with my clients, I always say we're working from the highest place. The messaging that comes through for you is from literally consciousness. It's coming from the highest source. And it's coming through to expand us, to expand it's coming so that we can shift our awareness or become aware of something that then needs to be moved through the body in order to invite in that loving awareness, that expanded loving consciousness. And I see it. I see the way it comes through. Like I literally see it as like this amazing light and how it's connected to the entire universe. It's amazing. So I was just curious if you started seeing more or angel numbers in general, and were they kind of just coming in like patterns, or like how was that appearing to you? And even the orbs that we've been sharing, exchanging with each other recently. I mean, my like last week, some of those orbs were just really so incredible, like so expansive, and just for every day or every other day they were coming to me, and sometimes I can actually see them with the naked eye and not in quite as fine detail, but I know that presence is there, and it's so magical and so filled with love. You can feel the shift, the energy change in the room, and the light quality changes as well. It's not like, oh, the sun is rising or setting and it's super bright. There's like a distinct shift in the energy and the light quality.
Absolutely. I want to say that I felt more depth when I started experiencing numbers. I mean, it's one thing when we're in school and we have an arithmetic problem, but then we see it in life and there is a transmission from it. One analogous example I can give is, when people do breath work, for instance, I think that, it's common for people to kind of try to achieve a lightheaded state, right? Well, in this experience, it's less lightheaded, it's more deep-headed.
Hmm.
So you start to feel more connected. You start to feel more at one with the universal and also the elements that make it so diverse.
It's cosmic.
It's cosmic.
Yeah,
Yes,
cosmic.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yes. So
And that's with the prana, like the life force.
exactly. Yes. There was a significant alignment when I realized I brought it to his attention that if you add all of the letters in the Hellenic or the Greek alphanumeric system, you get 4,995, 4,995, right? Well, I was kind of inspired to add all of the solfeggio frequencies together. Guess what the value is? 49.95.
Just quickly explain what the solfeggio frequencies are.
Yeah. So the solfeggio frequencies, the history goes back to the 11th century when the Benedictine monk presented music that was sacred. It was dimensional. It was sort of enlightening at the time. There was actually six of them. There wasn't the modernized or the added three that we have now.
Yes, the
And
9 octave on the piano. If you're thinking of a piano key, like pianos, right?
right, right. Through
So
the,
there's a story behind that. I don't know if you know the story.
I think I have an idea.
How it was they were deliberately added. One of the original six was removed, and these other three were added with another one, so that the healing properties were completely taken out, edited. It doesn't mean that one can't listen to music today, classically played on the piano or whatever, and hear and receive something from it. But the original solfeggio code, which was incredibly healing and uplifting and designed to affect us and alter our DNA in a really positive way and expand consciousness and awareness, and that was deliberately altered. There's a whole theory around that was shared with me when when I used to work I was a producer at Gaia for several years, Gaia TV. And so there was someone has written a lot about it and a book about it, and that said a lot of stuff to me about it. I was like, okay, I believe you.
It's just so interesting to me how there's so much history in solfeggio, right? Then there's also science that is accepting that, several frequencies actually do show physiological changes in the body, such as 528
Mhm.
DNA healing. That's becoming more widespread, right? What's interesting to me is that I think that the solfeggio frequencies will go down in history. I do think that they're a significant stepping stone. I think that they were the base, the foundation of how we want to understand sound as a healing modality, as a way that can significantly alter our awareness, our consciousness, and also how we feel and our body. I think moving forward, there's more coming in how we can extrapolate frequencies, sound frequencies actually, that are more cosmic, connecting them to Earth.
Well, that's the music of the spheres, right? I mean, we have this concept of the music of the spheres, which also comes from the ancient Greeks, and this understanding that every planet vibrates at its own frequency.
Absolutely. And I was really inspired by these two concepts, language, vibration and language from gematria, which you can take any alphabet and create a gematria system, by the way. It's not just Greek or Hebrew or for the Phoenician language. And also the frequency of sound. There's a correlation. I wanted to explore this concept of cosmic music because the dodecahedron is universal and the symbol of ether. So, I created a separate frequency set of 10 frequencies that are inspired. It's a dodecahedral set of frequencies that are cosmic. They sound literally galactic.
You've released that now, right? What is the instrument? Is it your harp, or are you also including other instruments?
So right now they're digital. I'm using just a digital modality to kind of construct because it's very new. It's kind of in its emergence
Mhm.
stage. But moving forward, I would like to incorporate the harp as I have done with other music.
Now, we've talked a lot about different concepts here. Some people may know about, some people may be like, what the heck? So, how can we bring it all back down to expanding and activating our DNA?
First of all, it's really important that we not so much focus as DNA as the final outcome, as the destination, but more of our experiential moments where we start to feel shifts in our relationship with our surroundings and with ourselves. Those shifts don't have to be kind of limited to what psychology or parapsychology shares about, PK or telepathy or precognition, clairvoyancy. Those are all really exciting new dimensions and new frontiers. But I really believe that the shifts that we're going to feel are going to be more electromagnetic shifts. They're going to be more vibrant from within. That technology right now probably doesn't have the means to fully understand because 12-strand construct is too sophisticated at this point. But we can start to see differences in our electromagnetic field that can be measured. I just met a wonderful scientist studying at the Ryan Research Center where he's studying bioenergy healing, and he is studying the healing emissions that people have using a photomultiplier tube. He's actually measuring the wavelength that people are emitting, not the aura, that's something else, but the actual energy that is
Of the
being
person, of the healer or the individual that they're working on.
of the actual healer.
Wow.
Because energy heal actually there are people that can literally heal with their electromagnetic
Yeah.
field.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's real. And for a while I was skeptical. Again, I'm being very open because I have a scientific background in this, and I was sort of even resistant in my own belief system, you know? But it's very real.
Hmm.
People are healers, and we all have that capability. The most important person that we are helping as our, ourselves is the way that we are showing up in the world. So to go back to your question, the DNA activating is going to happen. It's going to naturally take place when we decide that we want to be more open with our relationship with the life that already exists that are probably silly to us. Water, for one, right? Sound in general. I talk in my book, there's a lot of different chapters on different concepts because you can't limit DNA into just one linear field. I wanted to talk about different notes because there's opportunities that science is there's gaps in kind of our modern science of how we are relating to DNA and also intimidated by it at the same time. But actually, we're an instrument. Light and sound come in so many different forms. And I think that the more we are willing to gravitate to experience the different forms of it, the more we are naturally activated and want to expand, will naturally expand our abilities.
And so this is something that I believe is can happen naturally, right? You've just given some examples of ways that we can attune ourselves through sound, frequencies, and other practices. When we're experiencing this shift, how I think how you notice that is in what you intake, right? What you then choose to view and listen to and participate in. There's a big shift there. So, for example, if it's sound, you are becoming more attuned to wanting to hear sounds that are of the healing vibration versus something a bit more hardcore that you might have liked 10 or 15 years ago. But now you can't even listen to that stuff anymore because it's just too much for the nervous system. It's like, I can't take it. Right. So I think that's an example. That's what's happened to me anyway. I think that's an example of a way we can feel within ourselves that we're expanding.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to share that this is you're right on point. We will naturally shift, so will our living organism
Mhm.
with the environment that we choose or desire to be in, meaning that we will regulate according to the atmosphere or the conditions that we choose to surround ourselves in. I met Ed Edwards over the last weekend. I didn't know that I was meeting Ed Edwards. Ed Edwards is and he is a high performing energetic being, and he has been, science has proven that his brain operates on a very high frequency, and they call him alien brain. Well, I didn't know that I was sitting next to Ed Edwards at this conference. And I just turn around because we're doing introductions, right? And I just turn around and he didn't even say anything, but my heartbeat just escalated up. I'm not detached. I am part of the one field that you're part of as well. We're all part of the same field. But what I'm trying to say is I acknowledge that that's not necessarily my own physiological response that I was feeling, even though that's what I was sort of manifesting. So here he is saying, I'm Ed Edwards. my heart is just going fast, right? And years ago, I wouldn't have been so sensitive to other people's surroundings. I'm just here. So he explains what's going on, who he is, and then he talks about his energy and sort of how he is able to transmit electrical impulses. He's able to light up light bulbs with just by holding them. So then it was my turn to speak. And I said, skip over me, please. I need to ground, find a way to regulate now. Funny enough, John Kruth was behind me. He's the director at Rhine Research Center. He heard me and he said, I'm going to help you with that. So together we helped me get to a more, grounded breathing level. But just, I wanted to share that because I want to say that we all share a field and we all can emit energy to each other and feel that energy, whether it's high, whether it's low, whether, someone's intentionally trying to heal, even remotely. It's all possible. So there's so many faces, opportunities, gateways of how to apply oneself into this kind of experiential form of life where one can start to feel more as an active participant, more as a vessel, an instrument, but also more of a conscious participant of evolution.
Well, great way to end. Thank you. Really, really love that. It's
Thank
great.
you so much, Tatiana. It's so lovely to talk with you and connect with you. And I feel like we've already been connected.
Definitely, we for sure have.